In the previous lesson, we went over a couple of the basic sketch tools and touched on the idea of geometric relations. Since SolidWorks is a parametric modeler, dimensions and relations are really what you're going to be using to control the shape and the size of the geometry. To show you what I mean, let me sketch a chain of lines here. Notice that when I start the line tool and bring my cursor close to the origin, a yellow flag appears. This flag is indicating that SolidWorks is going to add a geometric relation. And in this case, the relationship is going to be added between an endpoint of the line and the origin of the part. If I click to start the line, notice that when I bring my cursor up close to vertical, SolidWorks snaps the line to be vertical and also brings up a small yellow flag indicating that a geometric relation is going to be added. I'll click to add the endpoint and double-click to end the chain of lines. To show you what these geometric relations are doing, I'll hit Escape to get back to my selection arrow. Now at this point, the line was sketched vertically and it actually added the vertical geometric relation. Also notice that the sketch turned black. Black geometry indicates that it's fully defined, while anything in blue is underdefined. So in this case, the line itself is black, but the endpoint is still blue, meaning that if I click on the blue endpoint, I can still move it. But I can't move it side to side since there's a geometric relationship of vertical on this line segment. Let's continue with some more line segments. Up to this point, I've been showing you how to access the sketch tools from the sketch toolbar up here, but I'd like to get you in the habit of a slightly more efficient approach, which is using the shortcut toolbar. By pressing the S key on the keyboard, SolidWorks will bring up many of the sketch tools for quick access, so you don't have to move your mouse all the way across the screen to access these commands. I'll click on the Line tool in the shortcut menu and continue sketching. When I bring my cursor close to this endpoint, again a yellow flag will appear, letting me know that a geometric relation is going to be added. As we saw with the first line segment, this geometric relation is telling me that this endpoint of the line is going to be coincident with the endpoint of the first line we created. Make sure that the yellow flag appears, otherwise you might end up with small gaps. With the yellow flag showing, I'll click to start the line. Click again for the next endpoint, and notice that since the yellow horizontal flag was showing when I clicked the endpoint, a horizontal geometric relation was added. To keep this example simple, I'll sketch a few more line segments, making sure that the horizontal and vertical flags are appearing. On this segment, notice that the vertical flag is shown in yellow, but the horizontal flag is shown in white. What this means is that SolidWorks is adding a geometric relation for vertical, but the white horizontal flag is really just for inference. This lets me know that the line segment is going to end horizontally, but it's not adding a geometric relation. Let me show you what I mean. I'll click to define the endpoint, and I'll press Escape to exit out of the line and finish this chain. So again, with the selection arrow, I can click and move geometry, and when I drag the line, you can see that it's locked to be vertical. But if I click the endpoint and move it, you can see that it's free to move. Even with the inference line appearing, SolidWorks didn't actually add the geometric relationship. These automatic relationships that SolidWorks creates while you are sketching are really just a convenient way to add relations, but I'll show you in a minute how you can add these at any time. To continue on with our example, I'll press the S key to bring up the shortcut toolbar and again activate the line. I'll snap on the endpoint of this line segment, and this time I'll sketch a line off at an angle. Again, notice the inference line that lets me know that the segment is vertical with this other line segment. But since the sketch flag is shown in white, no automatic geometric relation will be created. I'll click for an endpoint, and this time notice these yellow inference lines that appear. As I bring my cursor close to that yellow inference line, another yellow flag appears, letting me know that this segment will be perpendicular to the previous line. If you don't want the relationship to be added, make sure you just click slightly off. This can always be adjusted later. In this case, I'll go ahead and add that perpendicular relationship, so I'll make sure that the yellow flag appears. I'll continue sketching and close the chain of lines on our first line segment. Let's take a look at some of the automatic relations that were created as I sketched. You saw how I added a perpendicular relationship, and if I highlight over the flag, you can see the two entities highlight which have the perpendicular relation. If I click on the endpoint of the line, I can drag and move it anywhere, and you can see that SolidWorks keeps that perpendicular relationship. If I click on this endpoint, you can see that I can move it side to side, but I can't move it up or down because of the horizontal geometric relationship that was added. So, let's talk about how to add a few more relationships manually. I pointed out how this endpoint here didn't add a geometric relationship. Only the white flag was present. But what do you do if you actually want this point to be exactly horizontal with this line segment? This can be accomplished by selecting two items manually. To do this, I'll first select the endpoint, hold down the Control key, and select this line segment. When I do, a pop-up window appears, showing the different options I have for the relationships that I can add. As a new user, it may be difficult to understand what all these icons mean. And of course, you can roll over them to see an explanation. But it sometimes may be easier to just take a look in the Property Manager to see what options you have. Notice that between this line segment and the point, SolidWorks gave me a couple options of midpoint or coincident. Let me first press Escape to clear the selections. Now, instead of selecting the line segment and the endpoint, I'll select both endpoints. When I do, you can see some slightly different options appear in the Context toolbar as well as in the Property Manager. These options may appear different based on the geometry you select. In this case, I can make the 2 points horizontal. If you ever want to get rid of a relation, all you have to do is click on the flag and press Delete. In case you don't see these flags, you can always turn them on or off from the Heads Up toolbar under this Hide Show Items dropdown. I like to leave these on so that you know exactly what relationships have been added. Otherwise, it can be really difficult to tell what geometric relations you have, such as this perpendicular relation here. So, I'll turn this setting back on. Now that we've deleted this relationship, you can see that it's free to move again. Just to show you the other approach, I'll select the endpoint and the line segment instead of the endpoint. And again, SolidWorks gives us the options that are possible between these two types of geometry. In this case, I'll use a coincident relation, which will make this endpoint coincident with this line. Geometric relations are just one of the ways you can fully define the sketch geometry. Next, let's take a look at dimensions, which will be used to fully define the rest of the shape of the part.